I work in East Africa. I work in Tanzania. And I've been working there for 20 years, half my life. And when I started working there, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. It has, high biodiversity, both in the marine and wildlife conservation areas. And I realized that conservation is an important goal for us to achieve, to reach sustainability. It's really important. However, in sub-Saharan Africa and many places around the developing world, conservation is very top-down, and it's premised upon policy created in the global north by developing countries. However, in a place like Tanzania, there are people that need to still utilize those resources, and they actually do so much of the time in a sustainable way. So my goal with my research is to look at both conservation or climate change policies and the different kinds of policies that we have to manage and protect the environment, but try to integrate the voices of those who both have the right to those resources, to use them, and to integrate them into policy and integrate both their scientific knowledge and then have those voices be heard in policy circles so that the policies that are created for these places are created by the people themselves and for them. My new project is called Building a Blue Seaweed Economy in Tanzania. And it's about gender empowerment, it's about climate change mitigation and adaptation, it's about conservation, and it's about economic development. So basically, in the coast of East Africa in Tanzania, the seascape is gendered. So men are allowed to go in the deep sea, they're allowed to swim, that's their role, they do the fishing. However, women do not have the ability to do that. One, because they have all of the reproductive roles that they have to do. They have to feed their families, they have to collect the fuel wood, to cook the meal, to farm the food for the meal, and they have to take care of the children. So they are restricted to the intertidal zone. And because of this gendered space, women are trying to find ways to make an income and sustain their lives. And this is particularly important in the coast of Tanzania as we increase marine protected areas. So around the world, the goal for sustainable development initiatives is, and one of the sustainable development goals is to increase the percentage of protected areas around the world, both in marine spaces and in wildlife. And what that does oftentimes in policy is it's restrictive. So in Tanzania, I work in one of the largest and most biodiverse marine protected areas in the world. And as a result of this policy, men are no longer able to fish. And by restricting their ability to fish, all of the burden for the family's survival is now on the women. And so women are trying to figure out ways to create a better life for their family. And so one of the ways that they're doing this is by farming seaweed. And seaweed, as a lot of people don't realize, is in everything we eat. And the cosmetics we use and the drugs we take, it's everywhere. Women started farming seaweed, which is actually environmentally friendly, and then they sell it on the global market. And Tanzania is now the 4th largest producer of seaweed, all by women, the entire industry. However, they don't get a good enough price. Once it's processed, it's about $100 per kilogram, but raw seaweed, dried seaweed, is only about 35 cents per kilogram. So Tanzania needs a processing facility, they need infrastructure to help these women actually make more profit from this business. And then, so it's a triple win in the sense that it helps women's economic development, it's sustainable, so it's good for the environment, and now we're learning that seaweed sequesters carbon. I think when we focus on sustainable development goals, we often look for the solution that's perhaps the easiest, but like building a marine protected area, but that can actually cause devastating effects for people if they're not allowed to use their resources. So Mafia Island has the largest marine protected area, but now has some of the highest malnutrition rates because men can't fish. And so these women were like, we have to survive, and they figured out a livelihood strategy and started doing it. One of the things that I did is I presented this work at a climate change conference in Tanzania, and there was one of the biggest members from the IPCC there, and I basically just asked them, why aren't women from Tanzania at the negotiating table? Like, why aren't they invited? Because I was joking, if you don't have a seat at the negotiating table, you're often on the menu. And I think this is the problem, is that, you know, people in a position of power are making these decisions, and also we follow the money oftentimes, and marine parks are kind of easy to do, you know, and then I think that we don't have these people who depend on these resources, that have the knowledge to use them. They are not at these negotiating tables, and I think that's the problem.
This project is proudly funded by the Tracy Farmer Institute for Sustainability and the Environment and the Office of Sustainability.